Imagine a world where everything you know is slowly turning to ash. Not a scene from a sci-fi movie, but the harsh reality of Kidnaps Valley National Park during its most brutal dry season. This is a story of survival, not of the fittest, but of the most compassionate. It tells of a miraculous moment when empathy overcomes the instinct for survival, blurring all boundaries between species. In the vast expanse of Kidnaps Valley National Park, a land defined by its ruggedness, the dry season arrives not merely as a change in weather, but as a sentence. The sun, a tireless eye in the sky, bleaches the savanna, turning lush green carpets of grass into brittle straw. The ground, cracked and thirsty, groans under the weight of a seemingly endless drought. It's a time of hardship, a test of survival that only the strongest, and sometimes the luckiest, can pass. But this year, the sentence is harsher. The heat, magnified by the absence of rain, has ignited a natural phenomenon: the seasonal bushfires. What began as a thin wisp of smoke on the horizon soon erupted into a gargantuan blaze that consumed everything in its path. This was not just fire. It was a living, ravenous entity, a force that tore through the ancient landscape, erasing centuries of life in a matter of minutes. In a dense acacia grove, a troop of gorillas, once the undisputed kings of their domain, found themselves part of this horrifying reality. Their peaceful lives were shattered by the roar of the flames and the suffocating smell of smoke. Panic swept through the troop. Mothers clutched their infants. Powerful silverbacks bellowed commands, and the entire family scrambled to escape the encroaching blaze. In that chaos, one baby gorilla, barely a few months old, a tiny bundle of dark fur, stumbled. It had let go of its mother's hand for just a second, a fleeting moment of curiosity, and in that instant, it was lost. The world around it dissolved into a blur of hazy smoke and fiery embers. It was alone, its tiny cry swallowed by the thunderous roar of the fire. The world was burning, and so was its hope. It found itself stranded, a small island of life in a sea of fire, its heart beating a frantic rhythm against its ribs. It was a silent scream, a quiet plea for a mother who was no longer there. Its story, it seemed, was destined to end here, a forgotten casualty of nature's cruel indifference. As the last tendrils of smoke drifted over the charred plains, another shape emerged from the gloom. It was a hyena, a lone female, her coat a mosaic of gray and brown. For generations, her kind had been branded with the wretched label of the savanna, the scavenger, the coward, the villain of the animal kingdom. Their reputation was etched deep into the collective consciousness of both man and beast. But reputation, like fire, often obscures the truth. This hyena, however, was not a villain. She was a mother, her own cubs recently lost in a territorial skirmish with a rival clan. Her grief, a hollow ache in her chest, had led her to wander alone through the remnants of the fire. It was then, amidst the smoldering embers, that she heard it, a faint, pathetic whimper. Her keen senses, honed by a life of struggle, led her to a tiny, trembling bundle of black fur trapped within a still-smoking clump of bushes. It was the baby gorilla. It was exhausted, terrified, but miraculously still alive. Its small body shivered from cold and fear. The hyena approached cautiously. The natural instinct, the one everyone expected, was to see prey, to see an easy meal. But what she saw was something else entirely. She saw a lost child. She saw a reflection of her own sorrow. Instead of an attack, she offered a different kind of touch. With a delicacy that defied her powerful jaws, she nudged the infant gently. When it didn't move, she did something remarkable. She softly, almost reverently, took the baby gorilla into her mouth. Her bite was impossibly soft, carefully poised in a way that seemed to defy her very nature. No one witnessed this act, only the scorched trees and the indifferent sky. It was a secret shared between a mother who had lost and a child who had been found. She carried the infant, not as a meal, but as a sacred trust, a spark of life she was determined to protect. She moved with purpose, her head held high, leaving the burned lands behind for a new, uncertain path. The hyena's journey led her out of the desolate wasteland and toward the edge of another gorilla troop's territory. She knew the risks. The social order of the wild was a rigid, unforgiving hierarchy. To trespass into the domain of another species, especially one as powerful as gorillas, was a death sentence. Yet, she continued, driven by a primal urge to see this child to safety. As she reached the territorial boundary, 3 male gorillas emerged from the dense foliage. They were not silverbacks, but their size and muscular build were intimidating enough. Their faces were a mask of suspicion, their eyes hard and calculating. A low, menacing growl rumbled in their chests, a warning that could not be ignored. The hyena stopped, her body language a mix of caution and defiance. She carefully lowered her head, the baby gorilla still held gently in her mouth. She didn't drop it. She didn't flee. She simply stood her ground. The gorillas advanced, their growls growing louder, more aggressive. The air seemed to crackle with hostility. The hyena, caught between a rock and a hard place, finally loosened her grip. The baby gorilla, exhausted and disoriented, dropped to the ground with a soft thud. It let out a weak whimper, a sound that seemed to fuel the gorilla's rage. This was it, the moment of truth. The hyena, a creature of instinct, was about to face the ultimate test. Could an act of kindness be understood by those who saw only an enemy? The tension was a living thing, a palpable force holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable violence to erupt. Just as the gorillas prepared to charge, a new presence emerged. The forest grew silent, the young males' growls dying in their throats. From the heart of the troop, a massive figure stepped into the light. It was the Silverback, the undisputed leader. Its movements were slow, deliberate, a testament to its unmatched strength and wisdom. It was not angry. It was a silent observer, a judge of the deepest kind. The Silverback's eyes, ancient and knowing, first met the hyena's. Then they dropped to the small, whimpering bundle on the ground. It looked at the baby gorilla, and then it looked back at the hyena. It didn't see a predator. It didn't see a scavenger. It saw a truth that transcended the superficial labels of the wild. It saw an act of pure, unadulterated compassion. With a single, powerful gesture, it raised a hand. It was not a threat. It was a command. The other gorillas, their aggression still simmering, immediately ceased their advance. They understood. This was not a fight. This was a moment of judgment. The hyena, in a silent act of reverence, dipped her head and took a few steps back, not in retreat, but in deference to a leader who had understood her intent. The Silverback approached the infant, its massive hand gently prodding the tiny body. It checked for wounds, for signs of distress. There were none. The baby gorilla was simply exhausted, terrified but safe. A flicker of recognition passed over the Silverback's face. A gentle, almost imperceptible nod passed between it and the hyena. In that moment, an understanding was forged, one that crossed the boundaries of species, of language, of instinct. It was a silent acknowledgement of a good deed, a bond of mutual respect. The crisis was over. The Silverback, with the dignity of a true king, turned and picked up the baby gorilla, gently depositing it into the waiting arms of the troop. There, the mother, who had returned from her frantic search, let out a cry of relief, a sound of joy that echoed through the treetops. She clutched her baby tight, her protective hands enveloping its tiny form. The hyena, the silent hero of this story, watched from a distance. There was no fanfare, no welcome, no public recognition. Her act of compassion was hers alone. Without a backward glance, she turned and disappeared back into the savannah. She was not a part of their world, and she knew it. But she left with something more precious than praise. The quiet satisfaction of a life saved, of a kindness given with no expectation of reward. And so, as the sun set over Kidnaps, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, a different kind of light shone upon the landscape. It was the light of hope, a testament to a world where ancient rivalries and deep-seated prejudices could be temporarily set aside. The story of the hyena and the baby gorilla became a whisper on the wind, a silent reminder that even in the most brutal of seasons, in the most desolate of places, compassion finds a way. It doesn't need to be loud, it doesn't need to be celebrated. It just needs to exist. This is the eternal truth of Kidnaps, a truth that reminds us that the world is a little brighter, a little more humane, when we simply choose to see beyond the surface. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to see the world in a new light. And if you're curious about other miraculous stories from the natural world and the lessons they hold for us, hit that subscribe button and join our community. We have so much more to explore together.